This is the Aether. I'm Nick, and welcome back as we start to traverse the abyss into our October series. And yeah, we're talking about death again. I'm not sure I've gotten to say in so many words, but this project itself has been a death. A pretty painful transformation. A period of my own gestation and descent into shadow. Deeper into grief, the unknown, and into the sensitivity and raw exposure of parsing out my own experiences with the anomalous, or attempting to. All while building something still in its early stages. And to be honest, still working through a certain amount of self-trust, self-judgment, discipline, and foresight enough to know that this work is serving not only my own, but our collective highest purpose, and I really believe that. With each guest I sit down with, I'm unlocking new doorways of connectivity. And I really want to take a moment to recognize that. To express sincere gratitude for it. This week we welcome the Death Alchemist, a death doula, artist, and guide whose practice is deeply anchored in her Indigenous Chicana lineage. We explore grief and ritual and how their culture honors the dead through the rites of transcendence by gathering, speaking of them, and keeping their memory alive through storytelling. This is the Death Alchemist.
So my background, my mom was born, I'm first generation Mexican-American, Indigenous Mexican-American. My mom was born in Mexicali, which is like a little border town in the desert. And my father, I only know this through DNA testing, Scottish ancestry, and Irish, and definitely some English there as well. And yeah, my mom said there's Indigenous, which doesn't show up as Mexican, like that's not how the DNA, it says Indigenous to Mexico. And then oh my God, what is that one that I was like shocked to see? Basque, which is I was like, what even is that? Like, I didn't even know. And yeah, so I've been learning more about that. And yeah, apparently they're like an indigenous group that was in the mountains in between Spain and France. And their language was actually banned. I learned this just like a few years ago where I was like, oh my God, there's so much trauma there, is what I kind of realized. I was like, oh my God, like there's a lot of silencing. Yeah, they banned it, like speaking it, the music, and this was just in like the 70s, like it wasn't that long ago. So that was like, they had to speak Spanish, you know? Yeah, I say Latina, but like, I feel like, I don't know. It's one of those things, like language evolves, where I'm like, I feel more like Chicana. There's so much power in that, of like Chicanismo and also Indigenous, like just really claiming that. And it's different from North America because there's so much lost, like the records and all of that, tribes and things like that. It's just different in Mexico, in Central America. But so I don't really know, you know, I don't really know. I can't fully confirm which Indigenous group, but I have my theories just from looking at photographs. It's weird how the spirit can just know. Like I remember I saw this little boy in a photograph. I was like, this boy reminds me of my mom. I'm like, I wonder if there's something there. And it's from the region, the Southwest region. So I was like, I don't know. It could be, it's one of those things where you have to travel. Like you have to go ask questions, see what records they have, because there's records of my abuela and my abuelo at least, and kind of work backwards and see what happens with that. But that's kind of my mission for next year. Get in there. It's another piece of the puzzle. I think being born into a Mexican family where I was, raised by my abuela in Mexico. And even when I moved back to the US, it was every summer for I think 15, 16 summers I spent in Mexico. So I think it's funny, but like, yeah, birth, like there's no real avoiding death when you're Mexican because of our traditions and the culture. So I would say being born into a Mexican family, my abuela was just, I give so much credit to her because it wasn't just the traditions and, once a year celebrating Dia de Muertos. It was all the time, there was always conversations around death, and we would laugh about it. It was meant to be not funny, right? It's sad when someone dies, but there was always this understanding of even when she's physically gone, she's not. I will dream about her. If I misbehave, she's gonna come and like pull my feet in the middle of the night while I'm sleeping, which could have been traumatizing for another child, but for me, I was like, oh, haha, that's so funny. And as far as working with Santa Muerte, that's actually not something that I grew up with at all. My abuela was Catholic, so I would join her going to church and everything, but she was funny because like we would go to church and then we would go hang out with the curanderos and look at crystals and then go home and watch Walter Mercado, who was a, famous astrologer and just like a beautiful, beautiful person. An artist really is how I would describe him. And it wasn't until after my mom died. So my mom died in 2015. And it was probably like 2 years after that I had a dream with a hooded figure. It's one of those dreams, I don't know if you've ever had a dream like this, where you wake up and you're in bed. Like you think you wake up, but you're not awake yet. So that happened to me where I woke up and was in bed, and then to the left was the bathroom door. And in the dream, I kind of peered over to my left, and there was a hooded figure in a rocking chair in the bathroom. And it was one of those things where it was this very maternal energy. So I kind of thought I did in that moment. I was like, Mom? I was like, is this it felt like a motherly energy, but I was scared. Like there was this fear because I couldn't see their face. It was this hooded figure. And probably a few months after that, I learned about Santísima, about Santa Muerte, and I was like, oh my God, it wasn't my mom, it was Santa Muerte. So that was probably 2017, 2018. And it was a slow moving relationship where there was just an awareness. There was an awareness of her. And really in 2020, that's when I decided to go public with my work. And at first I was just really called to do readings for people. Because I've been doing readings for family, for about a decade, like just in the kitchen or, in bed or whatever. And it just felt like the opportune time. Like I was in between jobs. We were getting the monthly checks during the pandemic. So I was like, okay, like I'm going to put everything into this and get a new laptop and do everything. And then I joined this apprenticeship, a death doula apprenticeship. And then my cousin died, very suddenly. So speaking of initiation, that was my initiation. It was late 2020, early 2021. We still don't know what happened. We don't know if it was COVID, a heart attack. His wife didn't want to have an autopsy done. It was really hard. I didn't get to go to the funeral or any of it because, well, you might not know, but it's like a 3-day thing, you know? There's the wake, the burial, and there's like a party. So with COVID, I didn't even get to, I missed all of it. It feels like an open-ended loss. So yeah, I haven't gone to his grave. So it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah, I feel like it took me a minute and I'm still obviously working through it, but I did have a moment of it helps me to remember that my mom has crossed, and I didn't know this, but at my mom's after my mom's memorial, everyone, the whole family from Mexico was here. And we had, obviously we had a party, we had food, beer, like all the things. And it was really late. And this cousin, Jorge, who died, I remember at her memorial at the house, at the house, he said to me that I didn't know, all these details because I wasn't even born yet. But essentially he told me that for about a year, he lived with my mom. He lived in the States, I guess, with my mom and my dad, or I don't know if it was here. I think it might have still been in Mexico, but I don't know if this is making sense, but there was a sense of like a little bit of closure, knowing that she was waiting for him and knowing that I guess I didn't realize how strong their connection was, if that makes sense. Like, because he was, I think 8 years older than me. So there was a whole life before I was born where apparently didn't know until after she died, but he saw her as like a mother figure. And he explained to me, like, your mother was so, pushed me, encouraged me to learn English for more opportunities. Your dad would take me fishing. And I was just like, what? And so I think there is a sense of closure there a little bit where I'm like, well, she was there. She was there and she was waiting for him as a mother, welcomed him when he transitioned. But yeah, I think talking about this is making me realize how much I really want to go see him. There's something about that. It's just important. It's important, There's a reason why these rituals are important. There's a reason why we've been kind of, they've been stripped from us, because then we're easy to control and to keep in the grief. And, I understand if you're listening out there, like, grief is lifelong. I'm not saying, having rituals and all of these things is going to make that go away, but it's supportive, it's helpful, and it helps you realize that they're still with us and that connection isn't just gone, and that, not everyone will agree with this. But to me, death is like the ultimate illusion. And I feel like these rituals really help us feel that, through sitting with them, talking to them. We're keeping them alive, essentially. Even if they're not physically here. Their spirit is obviously still here. They're everywhere. Like, they're not here anymore, but they're everywhere. I don't know. I feel like I've never been in a family or been in a society where that seen as like crazy or bad, but I know that there are places in the world where it's like, you're crazy. Like,
Yeah.
why are you doing that? Or like, let them rest, or like, they're dead now. And I just think, I don't know. I think everyone has their journey with it. So something with it, yes, she's definitely still here. I have an altar dedicated to her. I actually keep my relationship to Santa Muerte very private. And that's the thing about people who work with her, is like, everyone kind of works differently with her. I feel like there's people who are very public, very vocal, and have kind of helped, especially with being online on Instagram, like helping people bringing people into the fold of like, you're not crazy, you know, and also different cultures have different representations, I feel like, for death. But I do think it's such an honor to have people connect to this folk saint. And I think everyone is a different, again, it's hard to speak about her because everyone has a different relationship. Everyone has a different interpretation. Some people are like, that's, you know, Santa Muerte has been kind of like whitewashed, and technically, you know, there is an indigenous representation of her that's been stripped by Catholicism. So for me personally, I don't know. It's hard to, I don't follow what everyone thinks, if that makes sense. I feel like I can accept her as others work with her and see her as like a folk saint. And I also do very much understand that there's something deeper there, you know. There's more to her than that. But yeah, if I have a session with someone and they want to like dig deeper into that, I always give people, you know, the green light. I'm like, if you're coming at it from a respectful place, I'm like, just have a cup of coffee with her, is what I always say. Literally have a cup of coffee with her. Start talking to her. But also, if you want to look into, you know, those, whether it's a saint or a god or a goddess within your own culture that speaks to this representation of death, of the mother, right? It's also the matriarch. I feel that really heavily, where I'm like, we've been taken advantage of and used in so many ways. Not just, you know, in many different cultures, but specifically in the Mexican Latino culture, I can speak to that definitely, of like martyrdom. And so I am very protective of her. I am very, yeah, I'm protective of her. And, but I'm also, it's interesting. I'm always like, I don't want her to feel used through my work. And I think that's a big reason I don't talk about her publicly a lot. I do here and there. I don't want her to feel used. And I want everyone to, if you feel called, answer the call, have a cup of coffee with her. Definitely, I think it's beautiful to connect with other devotees. And I know plenty of them who do, you know, that is their, the work that they're here to do is to educate people on her. But even that is like, it's through their own interpretation. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's not just her. It's all of the spirits that we work with, all of the guides that we work with. I really feel like we have an intimate connection. And so it's not going to be the same for me as it is for another devotee, as it is for another devotee, as it is for another devotee. It's just not. And I will say it took me a minute to get comfortable with people who are not of like the lineage to work with her. But then I felt called out by her, where she was like, why are you being selfish? Like, you know, let people come to me. And that's when I realized, oh, this isn't my path. Like, I will work with you. It's not my path to bring people in. It's my path to protect you and yeah, and let people kind of figure it out for themselves. You know, let people develop their own relationship to her. I think I'm past the feeling of like correcting others and going around and being like, actually, that's not what she's about at all. And you're wrong and you're wrong. I'm like, maybe we're all right. Maybe we're all right. And as far as the grief work, it's a lot of people come to me who don't have any connection to, like, they, you know, they're starting from scratch. So they don't have an altar. They're disconnected from their lineage. So I always really just push people to talk about it first. Like, talk to the people in your family, talk to loved ones who knew the person that you're grieving, and just like keep talking about them, you know? I think that's where the denial of grief and the ignoring of it, I think that's what keeps us in this deep pain where it's not grief, it's like sorrow. So yeah, but I mean, there's definitely different, the work has evolved. I just started a somatic healing program, and I'm learning, I've learned a lot, and I'm also learning that I want to work more in my tradition, which has been very eye-opening to be like, oh, what I've been telling others, like, go talk to your dead, talk to your ancestors. I'm like, oh, I should be doing the same thing. Like, do more of that, like learn the somatic practices of your people. So that's something I'm actively incorporating into my work. I'm actually hosting a workshop and ritual this Friday about relational grief, and it was inspired by friendship, like the loss of a two-decade friendship. So it's not always the dead, you know, the things that we grieve. It's also those living deaths, you know, like the betrayals and the friendships and the jobs that we, you know, the things that we have so clear in our mind. Like sometimes it's like a friendship that you thought was a ride or die, or a job, you know, or like a house that you live in where you're like, actually, I want to change everything and this is not for me anymore. These are all things we grieve. It's not just people. So aspects of ourselves too. So bringing in movement and song, and obviously, like, I love a good candle working. Like, that's something that's very Catholic of me, even though I don't consider myself Catholic. But when I think of my abuela and just being with her, like, that was huge. Praying and the use of candles and things like that. But I think it's a big ask for us to sit with the grief sometimes. And these are all just tools, you know? These are all tools, and you also don't need any of them. It can just be you. It can just be you. And that's how I started, with just me, you know, and a candle and a photo of a loved one. And now I'm incorporating more things, but I do want to clarify that you don't need any of that. You need you. And the courage, really, to sit with your pain and your grief, and listening. I think that's the hardest thing, is to quiet the mind and listen, because then you have to hear what's actually being said. And sometimes it's like anger. Sometimes it's not, you know, this image of like a younger you crying and needing someone. And sometimes it's fucking rage, you know? And it can be a lot to sit with. I'll just say that much. I feel like death is a mirror. I say this all the time. Death is a mirror, and it shows us where we're out of, I don't want to even say alignment, but just like, are you being real? Because death is the ultimate truth. And I completely relate to that, what you said about, I don't even fucking recognize myself. Yeah, if I'm real with myself, which is what I'm saying, like, be real. You got to be real. It's just the ultimate truth. And yet it's also the ultimate illusion. So I understand if you're listening to this and like, what the fuck are you even talking about? It's like, yeah, welcome. This is the confusing part of being alive, or not confusing, but the paradoxical part about being alive is that, yeah, it strips everything away. It strips everything away. It transforms you, and not, you know, I want to be honest, it's not always it's actually not a beautiful transformation at all. It's like, it's like being the caterpillar, you know? And I love my counselor. I have to shout her out because this was a few weeks back. I was talking to her about, I just want to be the damn caterpillar, you know? Like I was reading about snakes, right? When they come out of they're shedding the skin, it's painful is what I was reading. It's like, oh, they're rubbing themselves and it's painful and you can even die. Like the snakes can die if they don't make it through. And I was like, fuck, I don't want to be the snake. I want to be the caterpillar. You know, that's what I want to do. And she laughed and she said, you know, when they're in there and they're like goo and they're turning into that beautiful butterfly, they're like banging themselves against the caterpillar, the walls in their cocoon. And I literally laughed. I like cackled kind of. I was like, ha. It's like, what? Like they're banging themselves. And she's like, yeah, they're banging themselves against the walls of that cocoon. It fucking hurts. It's painful. Some of them also don't make it, just like the snake. And it was a very like she humbled me real quick to be like, why are you trying to make it not hurt or make it not be what it needs to be? It's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like all of us, you know, whether it's through grief or even just like, yeah, the snake having to transform or this cocoon to, you know, caterpillar to butterfly, there's pain there. And that's another thing, not to get too off tangent, but this world is really good at distracting us and trying to make us believe, like I really feel like it's a brainwashing that like it's going to be pretty and you're grieving too much and then you're being maybe dramatic or like it's just different being here in the States. There's this disconnect, and I think the reason why I'm feeling that so greatly too is because I haven't been back home to Mexico since 2020. But I was just talking to a friend about I'm making it a purpose, you know, doing this on purpose to plan next year to go to Mexico City and travel a bit. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about the later months where I just want to be home. And for me, it's being in Mexico, you know, because that's what I would do is like go celebrate my birthday and then all of the events, you know. But I am excited for Dia de Muertos this year because even though I don't get to go to Mexico, next month I'm actually going to be in Hartford. I was invited to speak on a panel for Dia de Muertos. So yeah, it's my friend Mimi, her name is Mimi Gonzalez. She actually has a podcast called Grief Sense, and she invited me to that podcast like 2 years ago now. And it's grown, like I'm so proud of her. And specifically in Hartford, Connecticut, it's like the third or fourth Dia de Muertos event that they've put on. So the fact that they started this during the pandemic and they've kept it going, and clearly it's growing now where she's able to invite people from her online community to join. Like, I'm just really excited, and I felt like shocked almost, like, whoa, I've been doing this work for a minute and I get to, you know, travel to do this. Like, wow, like it's just it felt very, I feel like it confirmed something for me. The ancestors are like, girl, go, like, go. So that's happening if you're in Hartford, Connecticut. That's happening October 18th in Hartford, Connecticut, and it's a free event. So I'm really excited about that, to connect with other Latinos, Afro-Latinos, you know, people who want to celebrate Dia de Muertos and are dead. And yeah, all of that. It's very exciting. I dream of the dead a lot. They definitely communicate with me, but it is what I would consider now. I'm, you know, if I'm claiming something, it's more claircognizance. So there's just this like knowing that I have, that I share, and that isn't confirmed in the moment. And then later on, it's like, oh, how did you know that? And I obviously, like I mentioned, I have friends and colleagues where they hear the dead, like they're in their ear, they hear the voice clearly, they see the spirit clearly, that's just never been my gift. Like I and it's one of those things where I think about it sometimes. I'm like, I don't know if I was scared out of it as a kid. That's a very common thing, to get scared out of maybe seeing more. But there's definitely some sort of ancestral gift there, because my mom dreamt a lot and my abuela did. So there's something in my maternal lineage that's how the dead come to me. It's always my ancestors that come through in dreams, but for example, I went up to Twin Peaks, not in Washington, but there's a little town in Twin Peaks, California, that's, I don't know, maybe like 2 hours from LA. It's in the mountains. It's on the way to Big Bear. So there's like 2 roads. Instead of going left to Big Bear, you go right into this little town in Twin Peaks. I was there about a month ago with a friend, and I knew nothing about the house because she had booked it. And when I walked in, it was like later in the evening, and I said, oh, we should put on music and we should play like music from the 30s. I was just talking out loud. I was like, yeah, what music should we play? And I was like, I think music from the 30s and 40s. And then when we sat down, I like put it on, and then there was a little like welcome, because it was an Airbnb. And on the welcome, it said, please play music from the 30s, because the house was built in like 1937 or something. And yeah, like things like that. I was like, oh. And I remember I think I said, God damn it or something. And then as soon as I said it, and this doesn't happen to me ever, but as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, they didn't like that. I was like, sorry. And my friend was like, what happened? I'm like, I just don't swear. Don't swear in the house. And she's like, oh, okay. So things like that. That's a really, like a recent example. I'll say this. I've never been in a rush to do anything in terms of like the work I do or the quote unquote gifts, because I really do feel like we all have these gifts. I think everyone is just, some people aren't ready. That's it. And I really do feel this, and I think we're seeing this. If you're not ready, or there's a sort of manipulation going on, that's when spiritual psychosis can happen. That's when cults pop up. And so it's okay to move slow. It's okay to remember in your own time. You have time. We have time to remember. And it's also okay to feel a little, I don't want to say fear, but to feel a little bit of nervousness, and to know that you want to do things right and you don't want to claim a gift or like just open that up if you're not ready. And you gotta walk the walk, you gotta talk the talk, and that's where I'm coming from. So people who come to me and they're like, I have dreams, or I think I'm psychic, I'm like, okay, let's start slow, let's slow down. Get yourself into an apprenticeship, work with people who have been doing this for a long time, who have that lineage of, like, for example, I'm gonna shout them out. Caitlin Graña, they're a fourth generation espiritista. That is someone who has, there's a line, there's a lineage to it. Not to say that you have to have the lineage to do this work, but that's someone I very much trust. So if you're, shout out Caitlin Graña if you're like, what do I do with this? And you're ready to step into that. You're like, I want to see the dead, right? I want to talk to the dead. Go to their page, Caitlin Graña, Mother of Mystics. But I think with every title we claim, there's a responsibility there. And I think that's the thing that's missing, is like, are you prepared for that responsibility to be called XYZ, or is it just for your ego, because I think if you step into this work, death work or just spiritual work in general, there's a sense of hubris that you have to walk in with, because if you don't, you will be humbled. I really strongly feel that either other people will, your colleagues, your peers will, or life itself, you know. Which is, I think it's important. It keeps us, like, speaking of truth and real, which is how we started the conversation, it keeps us honest, you know. This isn't a parlor trick. This is people's lives, people's grief, and all of that. So just be honest. Be honest. I think that's the most important thing. I think that's what the dead has taught me, is to be honest. Because I think that's what they wish they had done more of. To been more honest, been more authentic, been here, just be here, you know? I feel like the message that's coming through right now, and it's a hard one to hear, is that no matter what you're going through, you're lucky. You're lucky because you're alive. If you're listening to this right now, if you hear my voice, that means you're still alive. That means you still have a chance. You still have time to try again, to do better, to be braver. And that's an opportunity that the dead wish they still had. So don't dismiss that. And I think the way we don't dismiss how lucky we are is by being honest about what we feel if we're angry. So it's not about gaslighting ourselves into being like, I'm the luckiest girl in the world, but look around, you know, pay attention, take note of all the good. Do that as much as you can. And anything can happen. If you're still here, anything can happen, anything can change. I really believe that. We just have to be brave enough to, I think, to accept the change when it meets us, when it's there facing us. I think it's easier to run away from that and be like, nah, I'm good in the discomfort of what I know. It's like, or there's this expansive unknown where things could change for the better. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Lean into that. Trust yourself more than anything. And that's something I think the dead also wish they had done more of like, wait a second, I trust myself. Maybe I am capable. Maybe I can do this. Maybe, you know, I feel like that word has a negative connotation where it's like, if you hear maybe, that's a no. I'm like, to me, maybe is like, maybe, you know? I'm talking about maybe things can get better. Maybe hate can turn into love. You know? That's the maybe. The big maybe, the collective maybe, not the person to person, just like, I don't know, egoic, selfish maybe, but this like selfless maybe. That's what I'm leaning into. Because I don't know, I'm tired of not believing that things can get better. I know that that's what we're being shown right now, but lean into the maybe. Lean into the maybe. And I think that's all I have to say now.
So much of what Adriana shared resonated with my own experience. Devastating open-ended losses around the same time, both resulting in a deeper connection not only to death, but to life itself, to ourselves, to sensitivity, to the recognition and real ownership of clairsentience. It was truly an honor. You can find links to more from the Death Alchemist in the show notes. You've been listening to the Aether, giving form to the formless. I now affirm the sphere dissolved, and the transmission complete. So it is. If you've had a psychic, paranormal, or unexplained experience, you can call or text our listener line, The Void, at 323-332-1190. Follow us on Instagram at EtherPod, and join me at patreon.com/theetherpod. That's TheAetherPod for bonus episodes, guest interviews, ASMR, sound, tarot, and much more. This podcast has been brought to you by SpectreVision Radio. Theme music by Late Life, created, edited, and produced by Nicole Johnstone.